Good morning, and thank you for being here. This presentation, which is the voice of the association I belong to, will have two parts. First one, it will be an introduction of what our organization is today, what we do, how we do it, and so on. This first part will also include a little bit of history, but don't panic, it won't be long. I'll just make a synthesis, a brief chronology of the main steps in the long road to achieve legal euthanasia in Spain. The second part of my speech will be focused on the law itself, the results of its implementation since its approval in 2021, the challenges that arise from the enforcement of the law, and the continuing efforts we are currently making in order to guarantee fair access to medical dying for all citizens, which at the practical level, it's not that obvious. We will discuss that later. So let's start. I'm sorry, I think that's the one. What is DMD CAT today? DMD stands for Dret a Morir Dignament, as Gloria said, or Right to Die with Dignity. And CAT refers to the geographical area of Catalonia, as you know. That's sort of a triangle in the northeast of Spain, which for some people is a historical nation wishing to be independent, and for other people is one out of the 17 autonomous communities that form Spain. DMD is a non-profit organization founded in 1984. We embrace all ideologies, religious beliefs, etc., because we are plural, diverse, and politically independent. So it's a non-aligned organization. Our headquarters are in Portal de l'Àngel, just 3 minutes away from here. Number of members, nearly 2,000. To be exact, 1,920. 60% average are women. This represents 22% of the total membership in the whole of Spain, which is, as you see, 8,700 people. What we do? Raising awareness about end-of-life rights and choices, and in particular, promoting the DVA. We say the DVA, Document de Voluntats Anticipades, or Living Will. We do it through conferences, talks, workshops, film screenings with a debate, etc. Just for context, in 2025, a total of 360 events were held in various formats, targeting all sorts of people, general public, healthcare professionals, students, old people, and others. We provide information and personal consultation on end-of-life choices. And here, as you see, 1,870 people have addressed to us for consultation in 2025. Of course, we are attentive to ensure a correct and fair implementation of the current law, but we will go into this topic later on. We keep a permanent dialogue with public authorities and institutions, such as professional associations, especially in the healthcare sector, the Bioethic Committee, and of course, political parties, both at parliamentary, provincial, and municipal levels. In addition, we have a strong presence in the mass media and on social media. In fact, we can say that DMD is a leading voice whenever controversial cases arise or ethical debates emerge regarding the right to decide one's own death. Of course, we keep updated good relationships with the Federal Spanish Association. We have a representative here, Carolina, based in Madrid, and also with the World Federation of Right to Die Societies. And last but not least, volunteers who initially need training are of great importance to us internally. I mean both the initial and ongoing training of volunteers. We organize 4 training courses per year for new volunteers with an average of 8 to 10 participants in each course, with a total of 30 hours per course. And again, a great majority of candidates are women. Finally, I would like to mention something we're very proud of. I'm referring to the art exhibition La Mort Digna y Ilustrada, which could be translated as the dignified death in paintings. A total of 31 young artists have created their own particular vision of what is to die with dignity. You can see here some of the works. The first exhibition was opened in 2018, and since then we send it all around in libraries, art galleries, art exhibitions, etc., anywhere. It serves as an excuse to talk and discuss the subject. And also the artworks are very useful to illustrate a poster, a book cover, etc. Maybe this action can be inspiring for other organizations, who knows? Okay, how we do it? As I already mentioned before, volunteers are the real task force of our organization. We are more than 100 people, each one of us collaborating with one or several what we call working groups, such as the health group, dealing with healthcare professionals and related issues, the political action group, Incidencia Política, we call it, dealing with public policies, politicians, and so on. The legal group, important, formed by lawyers and experts in laws and regulations. The education group, dealing with spreading our message in universities, high schools, and even primary levels, education levels. A special mention I would like to make to a recently created sort of a discussion group on the topic completed life. They study the possibility of including this concept as one of the requirements for applying for euthanasia. The members of this group keep contact with their partners in the Netherlands, who have already proposed this option, if I'm not wrong, at the Dutch Parliament, although it seems it has not been admitted. We have to add to all these groups the so-called local points. There are here also some representatives. They are, the local points are a sort of local branches spread all over Catalonia. There are a total of 20 of these branches working in a specific area or city. Apart from the volunteers, we're lucky enough to count on 2 people who are paid for their job. One is Alba, who was at the entrance. You signed with her. She's in charge of administrative tasks and all sorts of tasks. And the other one is Ferran, who is here, who deals with communication and social media. Thank you to both of them. Let's go now to the chronology of the long road to legalization. But before that, let me point out an important remark or statement. We are convinced that the efforts and the fight of DMD to have the law passed by Parliament, in other words, the leading role that has played our organization, would not have been possible without the support of, 1, the patients, those citizens brave enough who made their end-of-life situations and values public, claiming the right to euthanasia and facing the legal persecution they endured. 2, the media that covered all these cases and generated debate among the public, creating a favorable climate of opinion. And 3, the political parties, some more than others, I must say, with representation in the Catalan Parliament and the Congreso in Madrid. Having said that, here are the highlights along the almost 4 decades of a struggle. 1984 is created in Spain with 3 main objectives at that time. One, to have a living will as a legal document. Two, raising awareness among citizens in order to create a public opinion favorable to the right to die. And three, legalize euthanasia. That these three goals were from the very beginning in 1984. The background in the world was this. Sorry, let me drink some water. You have it here on the right, on the right side of the screen. The background in the world was 1935. The Voluntary Euthanasia Society, VES, was created in England. 1938, the Euthanasia Society of America was created. 1969, sorry, the first living will was available, and it was created by Louis Kuttner. He was an American lawyer, co-founder of Amnesty International. In the 70s, new societies are founded in Holland, Japan, Germany, and other countries. 1980, the World Federation is created. In 1984, DMD Spain is created, and from the very beginning, it became a member of the World Federation already that year. 1986, DMD prepares and distributes the first living will document, which was totally new in Spain at that time. In fact, it was largely thanks to Juana Teresa Betancor. I don't know if she has arrived. She was a founding member of DMD. She was the Spanish delegate at the World Federation conferences on several occasions, and later on she would become vice president. Also, this year, 1986, a new healthcare act, Ley General de Sanidad, was recognizing patients' rights and autonomy. That was a big change, a big step indeed, in terms of the relationship between doctors and patients, because for the first time the patient was empowered and it was an individual with rights and autonomy. 1993, I'm sure you recognize the photograph, most of you, I'm sure. The Ramon San Pedro case breaks out. Do you remember the film? I'm sure most of you do. In 1993, he called the association. His request was more or less as follows, I quote, "I need assisted dying. This is what you work for, don't you? So please help me." The answer was, "We cannot act against the law, but we can provide you with legal support to ask for it in front of the Court of Justice." That's what we did. That's when a first alternative draft of Article 143 of the Spanish Criminal Code was prepared, and we started a fight in the Court of Justice for Ramon San Pedro. 1996, DMD presents a new model of living will. 1998, Ramon San Pedro dies in Boiro, Galicia, on January the 12th, with the help of some friends. DMD launches at that moment a campaign and gets thousands of signatures with a self-accusation. Yo también ayudé a morir a Ramón San Pedro. I also helped Ramón San Pedro to die. A huge number of celebrities and famous people gave their support, signed this self-accusation, actors, singers, journalists, doctors, etc. 2001, there's a conference of the World Federation of Right to Die Societies was held for the first time in Barcelona, and it was widely covered in the media. All these are steps which were important on the way to legalization. 2004, Mar Adentro, in English, The Sea Inside, the film by Alejandro Amenábar, was awarded with all sorts of prizes, included the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film, and it had a huge international impact. I'm sure most of you have seen it, don't you? Yes? Between 2000, the following years, until nearly the year before, until the legalization of the euthanasia bill, apart from Ramon Sampedro, there have been many, many other cases of patients who made their end-of-life situations and values public, claiming the right for euthanasia, suffering legal persecution, etc. We could mention Inmaculada Echevarría, for instance, who suffered from ALS and had been in bed and dependent on a ventilator for 10 years. She died by rejecting the treatment, the ventilator she needed to breathe. Or José Antonio Arrabal, who left a video making it clear that he was alone when he took his own life, because at that time, the person who helped someone to die was facing prosecution and prison. And many other names we could mention, Carlos Santos, Jordi Rodríguez, María José Carrasco, etc. Our gratitude to all of them for contributing with their suffering to push forward legalization. Between 1998 and 2017, a total of 10 parliamentary debates were held around 10 law proposals at the Congreso in Madrid, although they didn't finally succeed in being admitted or voted. Of course, all these debates and proposals implied lots of previous discussions and contacts with the political parties, as well as contributions and appearances in the Justice and Health Special Parliamentary Commissions on several occasions. Lots of work. Finally, in 2021, on March the 24th, the Euthanasia Bill was approved at the Spanish Parliament. La Ley Orgánica de Regulación de la Eutanasia, known with its acronym LORE, and we call it the LORE. So here we are. It took a long time, 37 years to be exact. Lots of work and effort to achieve the main goal of the association already at the very moment of its creation in 1984. This has been a great achievement that we are proud of, indeed. Only a few countries in Europe and around the world, as you all know very well, have legalized the right to die and have a proper law. So we are happy, but, and this is the second part of my presentation, having a law, being as important as it is, does not solve every personal case. Nothing is perfect. Let's see what the problems are regarding the current law. No, I'll wait just a minute. To start with, shortly after its approval in 2021, the two right-wing political parties who had voted against lodged two appeals of unconstitutionality. That's a long word. Fortunately enough, the Spanish highest court dismissed them in their entirety and ruled that the law is fully in line with the Constitution. At this point, it's important to say that the Spanish court based its decision, its judgment, on the interpretation of the European Court of Human Rights, more specifically in the Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights. And moreover, the court's judgment made an explicit reference to the Mortier case in France. We have here the vice president, no? In France. Sorry, this was in Belgium, sorry. The Mortier case was in Belgium in October 2022. Is that right? Good. Okay. Let me show now some statistical data. In 2024, from a total of 929 petitions for euthanasia in Spain, only 45% were implemented. And so they could finally benefit from a medical assisted death. 33% died before receiving or while waiting to receive medical assistance in dying. 15% of the petitions were rejected by the multidisciplinary committee that is in charge of approval, of prior approval, and finally 6% average, 5.8 in fact, revoked their decision to die. Simply, they changed their mind. No problem about that, of course. What is most worrying is that 33% of the patients, in other words, 1 in every 3 patients, even though their euthanasia had been approved, didn't have access to the right. Most of the applicants were over 70 and were suffering from cancer or neurological conditions. The proportion of euthanasia cases out of the total number of deaths in Spain in 2024, let me see, no, okay, sorry, is 0.1%, which represents 1 in every 1,000 deaths, okay? In the Netherlands, it's about 5, not 0.1. So it's increasingly, moderately, but little by little increasing. The law establishes very strict criteria and a very long process for having access to euthanasia. You have to be a Spanish citizen or a foreigner with at least 1 year of residence in Spain. And of course, you have to meet the criteria for euthanasia. These are the steps. It's in Catalan, but no problem. We're not going to see each one of the steps. It's just for you to have a general idea. These are the steps for requesting euthanasia. The first one, first request to your doctor. Second, request to a consulting doctor, 15 days later, minimum, etc., etc. Several reports, you see here. So, the result of all this is that it takes between 50 and 60 days on average between the first request, from the very first request, and its prior authorization by the committee, the last step. Okay? So, altogether, the process for requesting euthanasia is long, slow, and strongly bureaucratic. Another problem that we have in Spain is territorial. The implementation of the law differs quite a lot depending on the region or autonomous community you live in. The commitment in creating a guarantees and assessment committee, that's how they are called, this commission who study every case and approve or not the euthanasia. The commitment in creating a guarantees and assessment committee, I was saying, is not the same in all regions, and the provision of resources and trained staff to enforce the law is also very unequal. And also, inside the same region, there are differences between one area or another, or between one town or another. And finally, there is a lack of a specific training among some healthcare professionals regarding the ethical and procedural aspects of the law. Having said that, what are the proposals for legal changes and what are the proposals for improvements in the public health system that we are trying to work out at DMD? Let's go first to legal changes. An initiative to reform the procedures in the legislation is already underway. The legal team at DMD has prepared a draft amendment in order to shorten the time frames in those cases where, for ideological reasons, legal proceedings are brought to prevent euthanasia, as happened with the terrible cases of Noelia, Francesc, which might sound familiar to most of you, especially those who are from the locals. I'm sure. DMD Catalunya has submitted to the Catalan Parliament an amendment that has already received an approval at the Catalan Parliament. So at present, this proposal of amendment has been submitted to the Spanish Parliament for enactment as law. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, another legal change that we propose is the following. To recognize and specify the roles of all members of the healthcare teams involved in processing the request and administering euthanasia. Because at present, the law refers only to the role of the doctor, not to every member of the team. Now, let's see our proposals for improvements, especially in the public health system, that in our opinion should be made by the healthcare public authorities. One, to improve the implementation of the protocol for key professionals in the euthanasia so that it can be equally effective throughout the country as a support system for providing guidance to professionals directly involved in the provision of this care. Two, to provide high-quality training to healthcare professionals on assisted death, particularly to those coming from foreign countries who join the Spanish public health system. Three, to improve the efficiency of the electronic software used to process euthanasia requests. Nowadays, this is one of the claims and necessary improvements. Four, to improve the management of the register of conscientious objectors in order to ensure that all centers in the public health system can respond effectively to requests for euthanasia. And finally, to launch campaigns for raising awareness among all citizens about the living will and the end-of-life choices. In fact, this last proposal is also our business. That's what we do at the association. But it's not only our task. It is a responsibility of the administration too. So I'm finishing. We could say as a conclusion that a right that is granted too late, that depends on where you live, that depends on what healthcare professionals you meet, and gets lost in bureaucracy, is not a good right. The result is that access to assisted dying is arbitrary, and not fair or equal for all citizens. That's why we at DMD we are currently working to improve the law, and of course, we strongly support the Euro-wide campaign launched by the World Federation to include assisted dying as a fundamental human right in the European Union, which is the aim of the conference. Thank you very much for your attention.